going to move on to the next topic. If anyone likes to put any questions about it, sure, we'll get to them as well too. But we'll move on to our next topic, and that is of Tyson Fury. It seems like we're talking about Tyson a lot, and we were over in Budapest. We tried to get some time with Tyson Fury, and I'm not going to do an impression, but he said in a no uncertain terms, I'm not doing any more interviews. I'm retired from boxing. And he went on to enjoy the rest of his time in Budapest watching Roman and Tommy continue their professional careers. But we're getting these videos on social medias, 12 rounds banked. Him with his dad, John Fury. We're off to go to meetings. You know what this is about. He's looking trim. He's looking good. It doesn't look like he's ballooned up in any weight and lost kind of track of his fitness. This looks like a guy who was heading towards a conversation about his fighting future. Danny, do you think that's close to being announced?
It does feel like an announcement, an update of substance is a matter of time round the corner. You're 100% right. I think I remarked to you at the time, or someone, when we did see him in Budapest, that yeah, he looks in decent nick. He looks in good shape in the photos he's posting. He's clearly training regularly. Was spending time with Sugar Hill, who I can't think of any other reason he'd have to be in the UK in terms of his stable, in terms of fighters he's got. So you'd imagine that a fight is looking likely for the end of this year. I mean, we're hearing conflicting reports about this injury that Anthony Joshua's got. He needs surgery, but he's sparring. People have their views on the veracity of that, but it does feel like the Joshua side are waiting for Tyson Fury, despite what Eddie Hearn may say. And I think Tyson's, he's had his months out of the ring. He's always loved the attention. I think it's no coincidence that his big updates and the videos he's dropping are coinciding with, for example, the Alexander Usyk Daniel Dubois 2 press conference. So yeah, I think it does feel like we're getting to the time where an announcement of substance will come soon.
Does anything other than an anti-Joshua fight interest you right now?
Not particularly, no. I know he talked about coming back for a third fight with Alexander Usyk, and Usyk even kept the door open to that. Doesn't do much for me personally. I'm not sure how much it would do for your casual sport fan. Seemed to me more like a negotiation ploy for an Anthony Joshua fight. I think that's maybe what the retirement was as a whole, to be honest. I'm retired, so you have to throw me a few extra million to get me back in the ring. But it's got to be the AJ fight, man, at this stage. It's already overcooked, if we're being brutally honest. It's not got to Kell Brook, Amir Khan territories or anything like that. But a couple of years' time, and that's really where we'll be, especially if either man takes another loss or a stoppage defeat, even worse. So for me, it's got to be that fight, be it a 2-fight deal, whatever, but anything else. And I'll struggle to get up for it personally. I obviously don't speak for all fans.
Yeah, he talked about the Usyk fight. Frank Warren has been very much against a fight between him and Daniel Dubois. The possibility that he fights someone like Joe Parker. They're good friends, but there was at one stage he was a backup opponent if Dylan White fell out of their Wembley date. The options for someone like Tyson Fury, I imagine he would only be motivated by something at the top of the sport, be it an undisputed or versions of the world titles if they fragment after on the back of the Usyk versus Dubois 2 fight. Alexander Usyk has said he's only interested in a couple more fights in his career, this Dubois fight, and then it being either AJ or Fury. Did he say that he preferred AJ? I can't quite remember what Usyk's words were, but those are the 2 fights on Alexander Usyk's mind. Tyson would probably want that. He'd probably want Anthony Joshua. He'd probably want Usyk over Anthony Joshua, considering Usyk holds victories over him. AJ, I think as well too, has got to work himself a little bit in the picture, and that's probably what Tyson Fury will go with off of the back of the defeats that AJ has suffered over Daniel Dubois, off the back of his comeback rush of wins up until that point. So we wait to see what Tyson Fury does do and what this does mean. If it's all just a a red herring for just a football announcement, or he's going to be playing on the pitch, and it'll be a lot of disappointment. But with John Fury in tow, you'd imagine there'll be a documentary run up and lead up on Netflix to the return to the ring for the defeat to Usyk. Lewis Hart says in the chat, "Hi, hello, Lewis." He also says, "Danny looking swole." Danny, you feeling swole? Everyone says you're looking swole, but they never say if you're feeling swole.
Just a sad reflection on our generation. It's all about image and optics and never what's going on behind my unbelievable physique. But thanks, Lewis. Do appreciate that.
Amen, amen. He's our man. If he can't do it, Danny can. Is this Seb, as in Seb Parkinson? It is indeed Seb Parkinson. Seb, good to see you. Hopefully, see you in or covering a show very soon. I've not seen you for a hot minute, as the youngsters would say. 3D shoulders as well too. We've moved on from 3D. There's now 4D and 5D. I wonder if Lewis can touch and smell them from his vantage point. Eddie Hill says, looking well after Turkey, Danny. Is that true? You've been to Turkey recently?
No, no trips to Turkey. But mate, if this hairline keeps going back, I'm not going to do any pullback. We could only be a couple of years away. So yeah, maybe around the corner.
Oh, right. Speaking of pullbacks,
Oh,
this is
yes.
hanging on.
Turkey can only do so much of it. Come on.
Well, apparently there's going to be a trip to Turkey for the boxing lot soon, so maybe I'll come back with a fresh set of teeth and hair looking healthy on my head as opposed to what we've got going on here. So moving forward, Punk Pop Not Dead retracted his message, so can't quite see that. Conversation that's going further than what we're going to be discussing here on this episode of Seconds Out Live, but you can see that in the chat. Jack Litton says, what would he have to do with AJ? Oh, you're talking about that as well, too. Okay. Stephen Butler says, now Dave Allen is signed against Matchroom. Should AJ be fed to the White Rhino? Great fight, that. Don't really think AJ would be fed to the White Rhino. Dave did say, I think a couple of years back, he only felt he was a couple of fights away from Anthony Joshua. I still think he's many fights away from Anthony Joshua, but I don't think that would be one that Anthony Joshua will be entertaining. He did send out a good message, a really nice message. AJ did about he must have seen the fight and said that Dave had been gambling and was away from the sport and got himself in a better mindset and has come back and applauded him for his victory. So nice words from Anthony Joshua, who was keeping an eye on the heavyweight division. Big Chungus says, is Danny single? Danny, would you like to reveal your personal life?
I'd like to keep it boxing today, even if that's all right.
No problem, Big Chungus. You've been told to keep it to the boxing. Lewis Hart says, I wish. Moving on from Tyson Fury. A lot of interesting comments coming in the chat today. So yeah, next topic of conversation is we've talked about Tyson Fury, who's commanded the biggest and brightest spotlight in all of boxing. We move on to another gentleman who's done the same as well too. Legendary behavior was it called, but from Chris Eubank Senior to Chris Eubank Junior. He has now settled the rivalry between the Eubanks and Benz, which has gone on for generations, with him beating Conor Benn, the son of Nigel. He's also settled whatever it was going on in the background with Frank Warren, who they've released a settlement to say that the defamation lawsuit that Frank had put forward off of the back of Chris Eubank Jr.'s comments during his press conference. He was fighting on the undercard Kamil Zerameta, and he made some comments about promoters being scumbags and making their way through boxing by other means, which we won't get into any further. But the interesting part of that statement, I thought, was Eubank Jr. The statement had said that we're looking forward to a healthier, paraphrasing here, but a better relationship between Eubank Jr. and Frank Warren. Can you see these two working together, having fights between a middleweight with some of Frank Warren's fighters, and maybe even these two working together? Are they like water and Robinson squash, or are these water and oil and they don't mix?
I've never heard that analogy before. Are they Waters and Robinson squash? I mean, it's clear. I can't imagine that this being settled has changed Frank Warren or Chris Eubank Jr.'s opinion of each other on a personal level. Maybe that's me being cynical. I think that the phrasing of working together too. I mean, we're seeing a lot of cross pollination in these Riyadh season shows, and obviously Frank Warren, in terms of the British promoters, got that close relationship with Turkey Al Sheikh, and Eubank will, I would say, for the rest of his fights, the remainder of his career, will want to be on those shows or ones that have that financial equivalent. So he knows that, staying in Frank Warren's good books as much as he can while saving his pride is probably the wise move. In terms of working together, in terms of fights, you know, Hamza Shiraz up at 168 now. If he can get that win over Edgar Berlanga, obviously not a foregone conclusion. He's obviously someone who's been well backed by Riyadh Season, a personal favourite of Turki Al Sheikh. So if Eubank wants a fight in Saudi, it would have to be next year, you would say. That's on the radar. But I think I wouldn't read too much into the working together soon. I don't think we're going to see an announcement with, you know, Frank Warren and Chris Eubank Jr. smiling, handshaking, announcing a multi-fight deal anytime soon.